Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So, I don't really have a lot of soft spots in my heart for villains in Star Wars storytelling, but if there is one, then one of them would have to be Enric Pryde. And the reason why I say that is because of Richard E. Grant. He's the guy who plays Enric Pryde in The Rise of Skywalker, and to see him and his genuine excitement, just giddiness over the opportunity to participate in Star Wars storytelling, to play a role in a Star Wars movie, was just so charming, so delightful that I just, my heart grew 3 sizes basically in terms of Enric Pryde, that particularly scowling, scheming, conniving character in The Rise of Skywalker, and he is no less so in storytelling in novels like Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher, who seems to have adopted the character after a fashion, because the Steadfast soldier in the Return of the Jedi from a Certain Point of View story collection is also about Enric Pryde, and it's by Adam Christopher. Now, we find out in this short story that Pryde, much to his dismay and aggravation, was sent down to the forest moon of Endor as part of the Legion that was waiting for the rebels after they tried to capture the shield bunker and destroy the shield generator, and then of course all heck broke loose. And so we find Pryde hiding in the forest with the one stormtrooper who remains from his detachment, and another stormtrooper that they randomly picked up after the battle's over while the rebels are celebrating. And the trooper from his regiment has a bunch of death sticks and other illicit drugs and is getting high, getting Pryde high. So there's other, fun things like that happening too. Put me in mind of stuff that happened in Shadow of the Sith, where Ochi of Bestoon is just swigging from Pryde's flask of alcohol, and Pryde is simultaneously angry and also kind of admiring for his gumption for that. But anyway, so what happens in this particular story is we find out that Pryde he had a very specific plan about how he was going to ascend the ladder in the Empire, and various functionaries have either helped or gotten in his way. But now he sees genuine opportunity with the destruction of the majority of the fleet with the Empire, and with the destruction of the Death Star, that there are just so many gaps in the hierarchy, what's left of it, the remnant, that opportunity is now going to be wonderfully thinking crazy for him for all intents and purposes, and now he just has to get off this blasted moon. But the thing that really brings it home for him is the fact that he stumbles upon, or the other stormtrooper stumbles upon, and then leads him to the funeral pyre where Darth Vader had been burned, which Pryde is no, you're seeing things like this can't be, this is impossible. And then he sees it for himself, and it just absolutely rocks his world utterly and completely. And he decides that he has to try and get a hold of Darth Vader's lightsaber, that it must be in the pyre someplace, because if he can get that, then it's a tangible symbol of a transfer of power, as it were. But he and his stormtrooper companion are not able to get it out of the fire in time before they start to hear rebels stirring and Ewoks stirring in the woods the following day. And they end up being chased away from the funeral pyre for all intents and purposes. And, that's pretty much the story. I will say that, the one thing I was a little puzzled about by the story, and maybe this is told in other places and I just don't know it, but that seemed like the perfect opportunity for Pryde to grab Darth Vader's helmet, because we know, of course, that Darth Vader's helmet eventually winds up in the hands of Kylo Ren in the sequel trilogy, and I don't think we know how that happens, but Pryde was right there, and if he was looking for some sort of tangible symbol that, Darth Vader was no longer around and that some sort of leadership baton could have been passed, maybe the lightsaber wouldn't do it, but maybe Darth Vader's helmet would. So there must be another story out there about that, or at least that hasn't been told. So anyway, yeah, so this is what Pryde was doing during Return of the Jedi, and that's what I've got for you on this episode of the podcast. If you've been enjoying our breakdowns of the stories from a certain point of view, or from Jedi Fallen Order that we were doing the last couple of weeks, and you think that other Star Wars fans might enjoy it as well, then please consider sharing the podcast with those fans and friends of yours. And it also helps if you are giving a rating or review on the app that you're checking the show out on. I would really appreciate that. It helps more and more Star Wars fans be able to join us here in this crazy 9.5-year experiment in Star Wars storytelling, breakdowns, and news and analysis, and all the stuff that we've done over these many years. So thank you very much for sharing the show with your friends and fans. And that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always. And may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.